Hello and welcome to our featured designer series on pattern review. And today we are chatting with Jen Beeman of Grainline Studios, who is actually to my left, but I'm going to point to the right because it's always flipped. Um, yes, so I'm learning these little tips and tricks as we do more of these videos. So hopefully you'll appreciate the effort. I always say that an independent designer pattern is more than just lines and drawings and instructions. I feel like there's a lot of thought which goes on into bringing that pattern into this world. You're not just getting a pattern, you are buying into the designer's philosophy, their ethos, their design aesthetic. And I just love that. A friend of mine, dear friend of mine who's no longer with us, Kathy, used to say, a pattern is hope in an envelope.
Oh.
And I just love that. So I thought we'd just go behind the scenes and chat with Jen and just find out what your philosophy. So we'll start with that since I touched on that. What is your philosophy behind Grainline Pattern Company, and why? I always like the why of everything. It really helps me feel grounded. That why do I do what I do? So why did you start Grainline?
So I started Grainline. I think we released our first pattern in 2010. So it was pretty long while ago. And at that time there weren't a lot of indie pattern companies, maybe like two or three. And it was mostly the big four, and they didn't have like modern offerings. It was a lot of party dresses and things like that. And I went to school for fashion and pattern making. And I was working as a pattern maker. And I started making garments for myself and posting them on my blog. And people were like, how do we get a pattern for that? So I realized that I wasn't the only person who wanted to sew my clothes and not just party dresses all the time, just my everyday clothes and basics and things like that. So that
Although
was,
if I could live my life in party dresses every
oh,
day, I totally would. I mean, as
yeah,
long as I've made them and they're comfortable.
very true. Very true.
Sorry, I just had to throw it in there.
Um, so that's how I started. I wanted to, you know, provide people with that option. And I guess my philosophy is that sewing isn't hard. It's just like you're just compounding one thing on top of the other. I mean, everything is a variation of like a straight line, basically. Um, and giving people the education and the tools and the power to do that is, I don't know, it makes me really happy.
That's awesome. That is my philosophy too. I think sewing, there's nothing hard. It's just
Yeah,
few seams versus 10,000. If you
yeah,
take it one seam at a time, you can make pretty much anything.
yeah. And that's what I always say about like our difficulty levels is
Yeah.
it's not really that the advanced patterns are more difficult. It's just that you're compounding those things on top of each other. Um, but
Yeah.
pretty much, I think our instructions are pretty thorough. So we've had beginners sew our like advanced coats and they've come out great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually wearing the alder dress, which I had to put on my hand knit cardigan, and I know you're a knitter also.
Yes,
So
yes.
I am wearing one of my favorite pattern of yours. And one of the things I noticed with just thinking before this interview of all of the clothes which I have made using your patterns is all of them I've made multiple times.
Hmm.
I don't think I've made Pharaoh dress a couple times. I've made the tank top three
Hmm.
times. I've made the alder twice. I've made 6 fringe bags. And so I'll have to do some data mining on pattern review to see if others also use your patterns multiple times. But um, I do find that your patterns are very approachable and they're
Hmm.
very customizable. which I really, really,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
we
don't know if
really
you
try to
get that
go.
as well from people.
Yeah, people do. It seems like a lot of people do make multiples of our patterns, and we try to make it so it's easily customizable. There's a lot of options, and we try to provide like tutorials and things like that for how to customize it further, I guess, with pattern variations.
Yeah.
Because once
One
you
of the
get the fit
things
down on something, it's nice to be able to make it again with just little tweaks.
it is, it really is. And you mentioned modern sewing patterns. What I like about your pattern, at least the aesthetics of it, is the design lines are modern, but they're also I feel classic. So it's not, you've spent so
Mhm.
much time making a garment, you don't want it to be super trendy. I mean, you do, I guess, but then you won't be able to wear it 6 months from now. You know, I can't keep
Yeah,
up with fashion. So I really appreciate that about Grainline patterns, that okay, it's a little bit modern, that it's
yeah,
not looking happy hands at home.
yeah.
But yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk about something exciting. What's exciting? What is something exciting happening behind the scenes?
Well,
If you can
uh,
share, or then you can talk about exciting in your personal sewing if you can't tell us.
oh, well, we're working on new patterns for later this year. And we're going to be releasing more patterns in the 14 to 32 size range. Um, I personally had like a very difficult last 2.5 years, just like mentally. So what's exciting for me is that I'm able to like come to work and be excited to do work and have fun doing my job again.
That is
So
very important.
yeah, it was, mental health is very important.
It
And
is.
yeah, it just feels great to be able to be back because I really miss like connecting with people and just having the bandwidth for all that. And yeah, we have a dress that I'm very excited about coming soon. And yeah.
That's great, Jen. I think you've touched upon a very, very important topic. And I think I wonder if this is something small business owners share, because as nice as it is to have flexibility of time and to be able to work on your own ideas, it can
Mhm.
also be very draining sometimes.
Yeah.
And setting deadlines when people probably expect you to churn out new pattern designs one after
Oh
the
yeah.
other. That has got to be
Yeah.
very challenging.
It is. And then, people think that we're like a larger business than we are. Right now, it's me, my husband, my two beagles, and I have like someone doing customer service and someone like grading the patterns. So, we're a small operation. Um, so yeah, we can't do everything. And if something happens like outside of work that affects you, then you're
Of
just,
course.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
just it's difficult, yeah.
Well, Jen,
But I do feel lucky to be able to do this still, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you are taking care of yourself and feeling excited about new patterns. Is that a new pattern maybe you're wearing? That dress I've been
It
looking at? Is
is
that a dress or
it,
a top?
it is a dress, mini peak. It's hard.
Okay.
I'm only so far back I can go. There's a dog
Yeah.
behind me.
So is this
But
going
yeah,
to be, do you have a name or not yet?
not yet. That's
Not
usually
yet.
like one of the last things because I'm really bad at naming.
Naming has to be
Stresses me
so hard.
out.
I
It's
know.
so hard.
It really is. It
Oh,
really
hate
is.
it. I usually pull a bunch of friends and say, what do you think of these? Also, give me more options.
Yes, yes. And whatever just sticks. And yeah, I
Yeah,
I hear you. I hear
it's
you.
like the hardest part of the whole process, like making the pattern, all that, fine. Naming,
What do
no.
I call it? That's awesome. So, it's kind of like asking you to pick your favorite baby, but which
Oh,
is, so I'll be specific. What is the one pattern which you have of Grainline, which is in constant rotation? I'm sure you've made multiple of many things. What
Oh,
is it that you wear the most? Which
I
pattern?
probably wear the Archer the most, because I just love a button-up shirt. I'm not like a very frilly person, which I think you can probably see in my designs. And so the Archer is just like, you can make it fancy, you can make it like out of denim, and it's very, every day. That's
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
like my number one.
So I was curious about this question. So I went and looked at on PatternReview what people like the most, and it is actually the Morris blazer.
Oh,
Yes, people have bought that the most. And for
interesting.
those of you who are watching, I'm gonna provide some links to all of these pattern names because I know everyone likes to look at patterns. And this is not a fancy recording when I'll just cut the video and show it on the side. You'll just have to you'll all have to just deal with like actually doing the work of going down and clicking on the links. Um, yeah, I wish I knew how to do fancy editing, but
Yeah.
yeah, the Morris blazer, the
Hmm.
Scout tee, and the Archer. Those are your
Oh,
top selling patterns on
that's
Pattern
great. I
Review,
mean, I would never have guessed the Morris.
right?
For us, it's the Tamarack
Oh,
on
is
our
that
site.
that's the one which is
The
the
quilted
quilted jacket,
jacket.
right?
Yeah.
But see,
Yeah.
again, we've had your patterns for a really long time. So
Oh,
this
yeah,
is
you have since
historical
before that
data
came out.
too. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's the historical data. So
Yeah.
if I probably polled just like did the data mine for last year, maybe it's the
Mhm.
Tamarack because the quilted jacket
Yeah.
um is
I would say
all time.
overtime Scout and Archer are right up there.
Yeah.
But the quilted jackets have just, whew.
Yes. And
I know
that
when it
is
came out in like 2013 or something, and people were like, what is she making?
And you know what? My plan is to use some of my Kantha fabric to make
Ooh.
into the Tamarack. And I was very excited when you released the collar.
Oh, yeah.
And what is the other thing in the
The
hood?
hood. There's a hood.
The
Yeah.
collar and hood variation really takes it to the next level. So for me, I
Yeah.
wanted a collar or a hood, just one of the
Hmm.
two. And it has been on my to sew list since then. And I love that I'm not a quilter, so I love that you
Hmm.
have the hand holding tutorial for
Yeah.
how
That
to
one's
quilt.
funny because we went into it with, we didn't have like a quilting audience back then. So we had to go about it as garment sewers who have never quilted. And now there's a lot of quilters getting into it, and they're like, why aren't we just quilting a quilt first and then cutting it up? I'm like, well, because it was written with garment sewers who'd never quilted in mind. So that's
But I
why. But
figured that
you
you
can
could either do,
absolutely
yeah,
do
you could
both.
do
Yeah,
that. You can totally
sure.
do that. And if you use just fabric which is quilted without the batting,
Mhm.
it could be a nice spring jacket or even a summer
Yeah,
jacket, right? A
yeah, for
lightweight one.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I like the Tamarack and I love all of the reviews which people have written using that pattern. It's a great pattern.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What has been the most challenging pattern to design? Or starting from design to execution to getting it out to the world? What process, I guess, has been the most challenging?
Hmm. I mean, each one has its own weird thing where you think something's straightforward and then you realize, well, no. I think maybe the most challenging pattern was the Cascade duffel coat, just because it's so many pieces.
Yes.
Um, and getting that graded properly took a little bit. Um, but I don't know if there's like one really difficult one that stands out, because it's sort
Yeah,
of, you have a formula and you
I
just like
guess.
go through the list every time.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like
So,
I'm disappointing
what?
this question.
No, 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 no. That's great because that tells me that you're very process oriented,
Yeah.
right? If
Oh yeah.
something works, you're process oriented. That means you
Hmm.
just plug and play. You do the same things. And
Yeah.
have you ever had a pattern which you thought you would release, but you realized midway that this is probably not a good idea. So kind of gone
Oh
back
yeah.
and done it. You've done it. Okay, many.
Yeah, we've ditched patterns that have like been graded. Some of them we've revisited. Some of them just live on a rack in
Yeah.
our basement here.
Yeah. 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 I guess
Um,
that's all
but
part
yeah,
of
it's
the
like,
process.
yeah, you can't get too attached to all of them. At first
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're my babies. And now I'm like, well, that one's not
Time to
ready to go out into the
move
world.
on. And maybe things will change. So it's good to have them in the archive. Maybe
Yeah.
you'll revive them. And it's timing thing too, right? Sometimes things are
Yeah.
weird trends just come up
Hmm.
and you realize,
Yeah.
oh, I kind of did that like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing about fashion is just so subjective
Yeah.
and it's you never know, like
Hmm.
for me, I don't care how trendy these cutouts are. I've never been a cutout, whether it's a shoulder cutout. I
Yeah.
actually want double padding on my shoulders. I actually get very cold on my shoulders. So
Hmm.
these cutout, what are they called? Cold shoulder.
Oh yeah, the
Cold
cold
shoulder.
shoulder. Yeah.
The cold shoulder patterns are not for me. It may be trendy, but
No,
they're not for me.
I
Same
can't do
thing
that
for like
either.
little cutouts here, and then
Hmm.
that, or like little letterbox situation here. That's not for
Yeah.
me.
I can't be involved in that. I get too chilly. And I know fashion is supposed to look good, but also I just like it to be warm functionally.
Yes, I like functional clothes.
So,
Yeah. But
yeah.
then you can just let the fabric do all of the talking. You can get like
Mhm.
nice, fun fabric and you can make
Yeah.
but I love your what is the slight A-line shaped dress? Is it the Pharaoh?
Yeah.
The Pharaoh dress, and I was wearing that. I made that in
Mhm.
rifle paper rayon poplin, and it's
Yeah.
just I'm a gardener as well, and so all the
Oh,
flowers. I was visiting a friend who's a gardener. He's like, I really like your dress because it is sleeveless, but the armhole is so high, nothing shows. It's
yeah.
slightly higher neck, you bend, nothing shows. I
Hmm.
feel like, and it's still such a modern silhouette because
Yeah.
I feel like I can live my life. I can go
Hmm.
out, do the things I want to do, look
Yeah.
cute, and feel comfortable. That's a very tough combination. So kudos.
Yeah. I actually used the Pharaoh as my wedding dress.
What really?
And yeah, I got married in a Pharaoh.
Oh,
I mean, it was like fancy
a
silk.
fancy. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was pretty chill. We just went to the courthouse, so we didn't have to get that
Yeah. Why
fancy.
not?
But
Why not?
but yeah, that's how much I love it.
Oh, I love it too. And it is, I don't sew for other people, but this is a special friend. And so I told her I'm going to sew for her. And
Oh,
because it's so easy too, it's just two pieces and
yeah,
binding. I've actually
yeah,
cut
that is
all of
true.
the design lines from it. So I just make it a simple
Oh
silhouette.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I did that, or I took out the pockets for my wedding dress because I wasn't gonna be keeping stuff in there.
You keep the bouquet in there.
That's true. It was a little big for that.
Yeah, a tiny one. Okay, so if anyone watching this is new to Grainline patterns or they want to get into sewing, um, which pattern would you recommend? I don't know why that question took so long to come out.
Oh,
I was rambling for a
well,
while.
that happens. I would say for tops, the Scout is pretty popular for beginners. For wovens and then for knits, we have a t-shirt called Lark. We also have a free pattern, the Hemlock, that is super easy. It's for newsletter subscribers. And that's a great intro to knits, and we have a full like video tutorial. So I do recommend that one a lot. Yeah, I would say those tops are pretty pretty basic. We really try to hold your hand on those.
Yeah, I think it's great. I honestly, my goal is that everyone should know how to sew. It's just such a life skill, and being able to make your own clothes in the fabric, which are soft and nice, or being able to upcycle the things you already have. It's just, and those patterns you mentioned, the scout tee, the hemlock tee for knits, which is a free pattern to subscribers.
Yeah.
And what was the third one?
The lark is
the lark tee. The
good
lark
beginner
tee is a
too.
t-shirt.
Yeah, a lot of options.
That one has like full sleeves as well, right? The lark
Yeah,
tee.
there's like four different sleeve options, four different necklines, and so
yeah,
all
and
your
I think
bases are covered.
for the longest time, people used to think sewing with knits is difficult, and you know, I hope people know that's not the case. It's just you need to, you know, if you start with the slinky fabric or the rayon knits, that is a little bit trickier, or the active wear fabrics. But if you start with cotton jersey or cotton knits, they're
it's totally
very
achievable.
the ponte
And you can
or
just use your sewing machine too. You don't even
exactly.
need,
No,
yeah.
don't even need a serger. And oh, they're so comfortable. They're absolutely comfortable.
That's so true.
I know. I'm all about the comfort, if you can tell.
I hear you.
Okay. So do you ever sew other patterns? I know you probably have all of the patterns you probably ever need to make clothing for yourself, but do you use other patterns ever? Do you use other
like from other companies?
From other companies?
I have a bunch printed that I just got printed that I've been wanting to sew for years, but it's hard sewing all day and then going home and sewing. So that's what, you know, when you make your hobby, whatever, what do they say? When you make your hobby your job, you don't work or something.
Yes.
But really, when you make your hobby your job, you just work nonstop.
Oh gosh, yes. And I can attest to that because Jen and I were doing email exchange at 11 p.m. last night.
I was on the treadmill and I emailed you.
And that's good. I was almost about to go to bed, and I what am I doing checking my email?
And
so
I was like, oh
we
God,
get
I forgot to write her back.
But yeah, I also love that we can make our own hours and we're able to do this interview with very short notice. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It is nice.
So what's on your
but I haven't done
table?
a lot of fun sewing. Oh, my sewing table?
Yeah, what are you sewing right now?
Well, right now I'm finishing a baby quilt for my
Really?
sister-in-law. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
The baby was early, so I was not done in time. And then I am making a alder as well. A long one.
A long?
I lengthened it. Yeah, one of my friends did it.
I'm trying to imagine this.
It's
long alder. Okay, so
Beauty.
I'm gonna head back and just. Okay, so alder is here. So you made it.
So I made it like it's like midi length, like maybe a little shorter, like below the knee. One of my friends did it, and I thought this is gonna be weird, but
yeah,
it's
and
so
I love
cute.
the alder because it's just from the back. It's there gathers in the back where you need them, and just in the center back. And here it's like it's so cool. It's just this flat panel, and this panel comes right here with just gathering here. You can't really see because of my print, but I've my plan is to make an alder in linen this year.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
I love linen. Yeah, I did the flat panel because I'm a square. Like my body is just a square. So gathers all the way around sometimes looks kind of weird on me. So I was like, there must be other people too.
Yeah. No, but I like the design lines of it. I like this.
Yeah.
Very streamlined, and yeah, because there are plenty of patterns with seam on the waist and just gathers around. And this is slightly different than that. So I think that's what attracted me to this pattern.
Yeah, we try to include some sort of like fun detail or something where you can learn a new skill. So like, you know, pivoting to sew that corner. But yeah.
Tell me a little bit about inclusive sizing and when that came about, and what was the process behind? I know that all of the new patterns you release in both sizes, but how has that been the journey for you, like in terms of
it's been really interesting. So when there was the big call for inclusive sizing. We had already been developing a second block, so that was nice. That we had already started the process. And we decided to develop a separate block because with pattern grading, there's only so many sizes you can go before you start to lose the integrity of the pattern. And it starts to not really fit a real human. So we have 10 sizes in our 0 to 18 and 10 sizes in 14 to 32. So we have a 10 fit model for our original line. So there's no way really to grade that up to 32 in a meaningful way that anyone would really want to wear.
Right.
So, we found a new fit model. So we have 2 fit models now. And we just made our own block. It was really interesting because we also developed our own grade rules instead of just using the standard ones, because we found there were places where it didn't quite work as well as we wanted. Because there are like standard grade rules that everybody uses or most people use, and then you can, tweak it to develop your own. And we had a bunch of women in Chicago who were the full range of sizes come in to try things on so we could do more tweaks to the patterns and the grade. So it was really educational.
That's wonderful.
I feel like I learned a ton, which was really cool. Because I do love going to school. So I felt like I was back learning more.
Fun, yeah.
And it's been really fun to see, more people be able to access the patterns. Like when I started, I just did 0 to 18 because that's just like I was wearing like a 6 at that time. So I was like, oh, well, whatever. And I didn't think it was going to be my job.
True.
It was like I was working as a pattern maker elsewhere. And I was like, oh, this is like a fun thing to do after hours or whatever. So like thinking back, like if I had, started this with a little more like intention, I guess, we could have done that from the beginning, but
I think that's called growth, right? It's you just see what's needed and then you pivot and learn and grow from it. And it's been great seeing a good response to all of the extended sizing, and designs are pretty much timeless. And I was telling Laura that maybe this will be the year. We are doing a little blog post and patterns for women's and men's button up and button down shirt patterns, and looking at which are the most loved by the community. And she was and when I told her I'm doing the interview today, she's like, oh yeah, Archer is on my list to put in that blog post. And that pattern is like the OG. And right? I mean, it's
most of the button downs when that came out were pretty fitted. They had the princess seams. And I got emails from people who were like, why would anyone want to wear a baggy shirt? Because it was just, it was like 2013. People were wearing more fitted stuff. Now everyone's like, that's not oversized enough.
Right.
So it's funny how it swings. But it was like one of the first indie shirts I think it was the first indie shirt that wasn't fitted.
I think so. I think and it's been a popular pattern since then. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep these interviews like, people have shorter attention spans, and you have a busy schedule, as do I. So I am going to end with my last question, unless you have something to add. So for those who are watching, and for me as well, share would be something which has helped you take your sewing and or designing to the next level. You can answer both, either or. Like sewing as a sewist and designing patterns as a pattern business owner. But what is the one thing which led to a big change for you?
I think just for sewing in general, just people always want to know like the tips to get this or that, but I feel like really the best tip is just practice. Um, that's been the biggest thing in my sewing development is just sewing things over and over. Um, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, and then doing it different the next time. Um, and maybe it's different being a pattern maker because when you design the pattern, you have to know how it's going to be sewn together in your head. Um, but I think writing the instructions has really helped me think about how to do that as well. And then hearing feedback from people about what was easy, what was hard. I think pattern testing has really helped us with that, which is nice. I feel like I got off track here.
No, you didn't. It's perfect. I think a lot of things in life basically come down to practice. And there
Mhm.
isn't anything as a magic pill. Like if
Yeah.
I take this class or if I take this
Mhm.
pattern, everything in my life will be
Yeah.
changing. But I think it's my own sewing has changed actually. When I first started sewing in my 20s, I was all about like quick churning out clothes, like
Yeah.
just like my whole thing was if it takes more than 2 sewing sessions, I'm not even going to.
Mhm.
And I was sewing every night and just churning out clothes because that's what I needed. And if you told me then that hand sewing, I would run so far away. And now I actually do, and I look forward to hand sewing. I allow my garments will take me sometimes weeks to make, but everything
Yeah.
is very intentional. So I feel like it's sewing is just such a journey for
Mhm.
everybody. And
Yeah.
so I think what you
Well, I
said.
think like talking to people and the community and seeing how other people do things, like if you take a class, I'm sure the instructor, like if I'm teaching the archer, I've sewn, I don't even know how many I've sewn, like 100 or something.
Oh wow.
Um, so I know a lot of the, easiest ways to get things to work. But so I can show you that. But if you don't go home and practice it, like unfortunately, I can't
That's true.
beam it into you.
I know.
So
That's
yeah.
great advice to leave everyone and myself with. We have to just practice. And Sarah also says, Sarah Veblen, our teacher, that make a mock-up, make a muslin. And
Yeah.
it's just
Well, and people are also just too hard on themselves. Like if you go wherever people are buying clothes these days, like Target or something, that's not better sewn than what you're making, likely. You're just more of a perfectionist about something that you made. So everyone else has just kind of cut themselves some slack.
cut that's great. Cut yourself some slack and go do your sewing and
Yeah,
and
you're
enjoy the
gonna be they're
clothes.
gonna look great.
Yes, you're gonna look great. Well, thank you so much, Jen. This has been so fun. And thank you all for watching and being with us. And I hope we've inspired you to try a Grainline pattern. And if you already have one, which I know you are a patternaholic like me, so it's time to sew it up, write a review, tell everyone about how great these patterns are. And we look forward to the next pattern release. And I am so glad that you're excited back in the studio.
Yeah,
And
thank you
good
so much
luck.
for having me.
Okay, bye.